Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to this debate, and I would like to begin by commending the Social Security Committee and what I thought was a very worthwhile, considered and timely report. And I think that has been reflected in the contributions we've had from across the Chamber this afternoon. One theme that has run amongst many speeches, at least I think on these benches, is the relation between what we are discussing in the abstract to the lived experience of our constituents. Often in debating matters such as social security, given the complexity of policy and the huge sums of money involved, it can be rather easy, as I see to say, to slip into the abstract. And I think it's one of the most effective elements of this committee report is to be found in page 14, where it gives first-hand accounts of those lived experiences. If I may just share with the Chamber, case 1 on page 14, a woman living with her partner and young child. Since moving to Universal Credit, she owes more than £7,000 on her credit card. Case 2, a single parent sanctioned for volunteering in a community project instead of spending that time looking for paid work. Case 3, children caught stealing food from a community garden. Their mother had no money for food, as her UC claim had been delayed for a week. This is 21st century Scotland we're living in, and that is what is happening around us. Not because of the policy actions of this government, which this Parliament is elected to hold to account, but because of the policy actions of the UK government at Westminster, which has been successively rejected in Scotland at previous elections. Now, it does raise a question about what is the role of this Parliament, and I know there's a debate regarding what our responsibilities are in responding. But I think it's worth noting and reiterating the point that the Cabinet Secretary made. We're spending now over £120 million every year mitigating welfare cuts from the UK government. £120 million is what we spend on the Pupil Equity Fund, something that I know is having a transformative impact for young people, and particularly young people from rather challenged backgrounds in my own constituency. Think what we could do with that additional £120 million if we did not have to spend that mitigating cuts that we did not make and for which we do not receive the savings. Now, the debate about poverty, the debate about in-work poverty is, of course, as many members have alluded to, incredibly complex. Social security is but one aspect of that. And I think, as I've said, the work of this report highlights where the challenges are within reserve benefits. The contribution from the Cabinet Secretary and some of my colleagues highlights the work that the Scottish Government is doing to mitigate this. But there is broader work that has been undertaken, of course, which is the Scottish Government's commitment to fair work. And that is important. Also important is the Scottish Government's commitment on public sector pay, because we do, of course, understand that there is a relationship between public sector pay and private sector pay. Salaries can become more competitive when we increase public sector pay. But again, these are tangential. They are attempts to mitigate. We are not dealing with the problem at source. And where I have a grave concern is that when I think about where we will be in 2 years' time, 4 years' time, 10 years' time, with the challenges that are coming down the track in the labour market, if we are not able to address these issues at source, then we are not going to be able to mitigate the catastrophic damage that will be inflicted upon the livelihoods of our constituents, upon our communities, communities which are being disadvantaged because some people are being sanctioned for seeking to go and do community work, as this report highlights. So what is the solution? Well, I think the solution ultimately is to be for this Parliament to be responsible for all powers over social security, rather than this piecemeal approach. And I do understand the arguments for pragmatism, for focusing on the powers that we have, but we are limited in what we can do. And as already been highlighted, 230,000 children in poverty, 1 in 4, 1 in 10 children in persistent poverty. And that is important because with the cuts that have been made, cumulatively it will be £3.7 billion. That is not a saving for the UK government. It is just storing up problems for the future, because every single one of these children is more at risk of being affected by adverse childhood experiences, of a challenged upbringing which will result in reduced opportunities and limited potential, which in the future could make them consequently more needing of support from the state. So the policies that the UK government are pursuing, they are not policies which have the long-term well-being of our constituents at heart. They're not policies which are going to build up our communities, strengthen our people, genuinely help people get into work. Rather, they are just an expression couched in the language of work pays, of very old and sadly indelible Tory values, which is the deserving and the undeserving. And I don't want that for my constituents. I don't want it for my country. And that's why this Parliament needs full powers over social security.